Echo 7.
In 2019, a retired detective in Missoula, Montana, received a phone call from a woman he had never met. She said her husband had disappeared on the Appalachian Trail in Virginia. She said the search teams had found his boots on the trail, placed side by side, laces loosened. She said the dogs tracked his scent barefoot into the forest and lost it at a creek. She said nobody could explain why a man would remove his boots on a mountain trail and walk barefoot into the woods. The detective told her he was sorry, but he was retired, and he did not work missing person cases anymore. She said she was not calling about the case. She said she was calling about the boots. She said she had found his name in an article about a woman who disappeared from Mount Shasta in California in 2015. The article mentioned that the detective had investigated the case. The article mentioned that the woman's boots had been found on the trail, placed side by side, laces loosened. She said the boots were the same. The detective asked what she meant. She said her husband's boots were placed exactly the way the Mount Shasta woman's boots were placed, side by side, laces loosened, not kicked off, not thrown, not fallen, placed, as if two people who never met, on opposite sides of the country, 4 years apart, performed the same ritual before walking into the forest without shoes. The detective told me he hung up the phone and sat at his desk for approximately 10 minutes without moving. He said in 31 years of law enforcement, he had investigated more than 200 missing person cases. He said he had seen patterns. Patterns in abductions, patterns in runaways, patterns in suicides. Every category of disappearance has a behavioral signature that investigators learn to recognize. He said he had never seen a pattern like this. He said he made a list. Every case he had worked or reviewed where the missing person's boots were found, placed on the trail. He found 7 cases in his own files. He started calling colleagues in other states. They checked their files. They found more. Over the next 18 months, the detective compiled a database of 43 cases across 11 states, spanning 3 decades. 43 people who disappeared from wilderness areas in the United States. 43 people whose boots were found on or near the trail, placed side by side, laces loosened or untied, in a position consistent with deliberate removal. 43 people who took off their boots before they vanished. He said the number is not the point. He said the placement is the point. He said a person who takes off their boots while hiking leaves them in a predictable way. They pull the boot off one foot and drop it. They pull the boot off the other foot and drop it. The boots end up in a random arrangement, one upright, one on its side, one facing left, one facing the trail. The laces are still tight because the person pulled the boot off without unlacing it. He said none of his 43 cases show this pattern. He said in every case, the boots are placed, side by side, parallel, the openings facing the same direction, the laces loosened or untied, as if the person sat down, unlaced each boot carefully, removed each boot, and set it beside the other. He said this is not how a person in distress removes their boots. This is not how a person in a hurry removes their boots. This is how a person removes their boots at the end of the day, at their front door, before walking inside. He said the people in his database removed their boots as if they were arriving somewhere, as if the trail was the approach and the forest was the entrance, and the boots were not needed inside. He said he does not know what inside means. He said the 43 people in his database may know. He said none of them have been available to ask. This video is not a collection of disappearances. It is a collection of evidence. Evidence that the same behaviors appear in case after case across the entire wilderness system of the United States. Behaviors that repeat with a consistency that cannot be explained by coincidence, by shared psychology, or by environmental factors. People who have never met performing the same actions before they vanish, in the same order, with the same care, as if following instructions that none of them received. The boots are first. The boots are always first. What follows the boots is a sequence of actions that the missing perform before they vanish, the same actions, the same order. across 30 cases from the Appalachian Trail to Mount Shasta, to Glacier National Park, to the North Cascades, to the Boundary Waters, to the places where the rangers who search for the missing become the missing themselves. East Coast and West Coast, desert and glacier, old mountains and young volcanoes. The terrain changes. The sequence does not. By the end of this video, you will know every step in the sequence. You will know what the missing people did, in what order, before they stopped being on the trail. You will discover each step, the way the detective discovered them, one at a time. Each step more disturbing than the last. Each step confirmed by cases from parks that are 3,000 miles apart. The sequence begins with something you would not expect. It begins with their boots. Every case in this video has been reconstructed from search and rescue incident reports, law enforcement files, and interviews with investigators, SAR coordinators, and family members. All names have been changed at the family's request. Certain locations have been generalized to protect ongoing investigations. Every operational detail, every timeline, every piece of recovered equipment is as documented. The retired detective who compiled the initial database agreed to share his findings for this video on the condition that his name not be used. He said he does not want attention. He said he wants someone to explain why 43 people across 11 states took off their boots the same way before disappearing. He said nobody has explained it. He said he has been waiting 7 years for an explanation. He said the boots are still in evidence rooms across the country, paired, side by side, laces loose, waiting for their owners to come back and put them on. He said the boots are still waiting. The detective's name is not in this video. He asked for that. He said he does not want to become the story. He said the evidence is the story, but his method matters. Because what the detective did between 2019 and 2024 is what no law enforcement agency, no Park Service regional office, no federal database has ever done. He compared files across jurisdictions. He started with the phone call from the woman in Virginia, her husband's boots on the Appalachian Trail. He pulled the Mount Shasta file from his own records. He placed the 2 boot photographs side by side. The placement was identical. He called a colleague in Oregon. He asked if there were any missing hiker cases where boots were found, placed on the trail. The colleague found 2. He emailed photographs. The placement was identical. He called a colleague in Montana. 3 cases, identical placement. He called a colleague in North Carolina. 2 cases, identical. He called a colleague in Maine. 2 cases, identical. Over 18 months, the detective contacted investigators in 23 counties across 11 states. He asked the same question every time. Do you have any missing person cases where the boots were found, placed on the trail, side by side, laces loosened? The answer was yes, more often than he expected. The photographs were identical more often than statistics allows. He built a database, a spreadsheet, 43 rows, each row a person, each row a park, each row a date and a set of coordinates and a description of how the boots were found. He added columns. Was the pack found upright? Was the communication device separated from the pack? Was the scent trail perpendicular to the trail? Did the scent end at water? Every column was yes. For every row, 43 rows of yes. He said the spreadsheet is the most disturbing document he has ever created. He said 43 identical sequences across 11 states is not a data set. He said it is a diagnosis. He said the wilderness has a condition. He said the condition produces the sequence. He said the condition has been producing the sequence for at least 4 decades. He said nobody has named the condition. He said he does not have a name for it. He said he has a spreadsheet and a collection of boot photographs and a map with 43 pins and the knowledge that somewhere in America, right now, a person is on a trail near a creek and the sound has not come yet. But the creek is there, and the sound will come, or it will not. And either way, the creek will keep running, and the evidence rooms will keep collecting boots. We begin with the boots. Step 1. The boots. The first case in this sequence happened on the Appalachian Trail in North Carolina in October of 2012. A 48-year-old high school principal named Glenn Harker parked at a trailhead near the Blue Ridge Parkway and set out for a 3-day solo hike along the AT heading south. He was experienced. He had been section hiking the trail for 9 years. He carried a satellite communicator, a full pack, and boots that he had broken in over 600 miles. On October 15th, his second day on the trail, Glenn sent his evening satellite message to his wife. Good day. 16 miles. Camping near a spring. Weather holding. On October 16th, he did not send a message. His wife contacted the county sheriff on October 17th. Rangers hiked to the spring where Glenn had camped. His tent was there. His sleeping bag was inside. His food bag was hanging from a bear line. His boots were on the trail, approximately 40 yards from his campsite. They were placed side by side, facing south, the direction Glenn had been hiking. The laces were loosened. The insoles were dry. The boots were not muddy, not damaged, not worn in a way that would cause discomfort. They were a pair of well-maintained hiking boots that had been removed and placed on the trail with care. Glenn was not at the campsite. He was not at the spring. He was not on the trail. Dogs tracked his scent from the boots approximately 120 yards west of the trail, through dense hardwood forest, downhill to a creek. The creek was approximately 10 feet wide and ankle deep, flowing over a gravel bed. The scent ended at the creek. Glenn Harker has never been found. The investigator told me the boots are the evidence that separates this case from a standard missing hiker scenario. He said Glenn's boots were not beside his tent, where a person would normally leave them overnight. The boots were 40 yards from the tent, on the trail. He said this means Glenn put on his boots in the morning, walked 40 yards to the trail, and then removed his boots on the trail and walked into the forest barefoot. He said a person does not put on boots, walk 40 yards, and then take them off. He said the act of putting on boots is the act of beginning to hike. The act of removing boots on the trail 40 yards from camp is the act of a person who started to hike and then changed the plan. He said something changed Glenn's plan between the campsite and the trail. He said Glenn walked 40 yards in his boots, and then the boots were no longer needed. He said whatever Glenn was going to do next, boots were not part of it. The second case happened 3 years later on Mount Shasta in Northern California. Mount Shasta is a 14,179-foot stratovolcano that rises from the Sacramento Valley floor to a glaciated summit, visible from 100 miles away. The mountain is isolated. It does not share a ridgeline with other peaks. It stands alone, a massive volcanic cone surrounded by flat terrain, visible from every direction, dominating the landscape the way a lighthouse dominates a harbor. I will call her Diane Forrester. Her name has been changed at her family's request. The dates and details are as documented. Diane was 39 years old in July of 2015. She was an ultrarunner from Bend, Oregon, who trained on volcanic peaks throughout the Cascades. She had summited Shasta twice. She had run the Shasta Summit Trail, 14 miles round trip with 7,000 feet of elevation gain, in 4 hours and 22 minutes. She was one of the most physically capable people on the mountain on any given day. On July 11th, Diane drove to the Bunny Flat trailhead at 6,900 feet and began running the Avalanche Gulch route toward the summit. She was alone. She carried a running vest with water, energy gels, a wind jacket, and a GPS watch. She wore trail running shoes, not boots. Her GPS watch data was recovered later from the cloud service it synced with. The data shows her running steadily uphill at a pace of approximately 12 minutes per mile, consistent with ascending steep volcanic terrain at altitude. At approximately 10,500 feet elevation, at approximately 9:40 in the morning, the GPS data shows her stopping. She was stationary for approximately 4 minutes. Then the data shows her moving again, not uphill toward the summit, not downhill toward the trailhead, perpendicular to the route, east, across the Avalanche Gulch snowfield, toward a rocky ridge that separates Avalanche Gulch from Cascade Gulch. Her pace across the snowfield was walking, not running. approximately 20 minutes per mile, slow and steady across terrain that she could have crossed at 3 times the speed. The GPS data ends at the rocky ridge at approximately 10:15. The watch stopped recording. The activity was manually ended. Someone pressed the stop button. The battery was later found to be at 63%. The watch was functioning. Someone ended the recording and removed the watch from her wrist and placed it on the ridge. Climbers ascending Avalanche Gulch that morning did not report seeing Diane after approximately 9:30. A climbing team that was resting at approximately 10,800 feet above and west of Diane's position had a clear view of the snowfield below them. They did not see anyone crossing the snowfield toward the rocky ridge between 9:40 and 10:15. They were looking at the snowfield. It was empty. Diane's GPS watch was found on the rocky ridge at approximately 10,600 feet. Beside the watch were her trail running shoes, placed side by side, laces loosened. Her running vest was found approximately 20 feet from the shoes, draped over a rock, as if set down deliberately. Diane was not at the ridge. She was not on the snowfield. She was not on the mountain. Search teams covered the area for 11 days. They checked every crevasse. They checked every cliff base. They flew helicopter grids. They brought in dogs from 3 counties. They did not find Diane Forrester. The investigator told me the shoes are the evidence that connects this case to the broader pattern. He said Diane was wearing trail running shoes, not boots, but the behavior was identical. She stopped on the route. She moved perpendicular to the route. She removed her footwear and placed it side by side with the laces loosened. She set down her equipment. She was not at the location when searchers arrived. He said the retired detective from Montana contacted him in 2020 after learning about the case. He said the detective showed him photographs from 7 other cases. He said the footwear in every photograph was arranged identically, side by side, laces loose, placed, not dropped. He said the detective asked him if he had ever seen anything like it. He said he had not. He said the detective said he had seen it 43 times. The third case happened in Glacier National Park in August of 2017. A 61-year-old retired schoolteacher named Floyd Erickson was day hiking the Highline Trail on the west side of the park. The Highline Trail is one of the most popular hikes in Glacier, traversing the Continental Divide at approximately 6,500 feet, with views of peaks, glaciers, and valleys in every direction. Floyd had been hiking in Glacier every summer for 23 years. He knew the Highline Trail the way a commuter knows their route to work. He had walked it more than 60 times. He was not a person who got lost on the Highline Trail. On August 9th, Floyd parked at Logan Pass and began hiking west on the Highline. He was alone. His wife had stayed at the lodge. He planned to hike to Granite Park Chalet, approximately 7.5 miles, eat lunch, and hike back. A standard day. He signed the trail register at 7:45 in the morning. A ranger remembered seeing him on the trail at approximately 9:30, moving at a comfortable pace, stopping to photograph a mountain goat. At approximately 11 in the morning, a hiker heading east on the Highline noticed a pair of hiking boots sitting on the trail, side by side, laces loosened. The boots were placed in the middle of the trail, facing west, the direction Floyd had been hiking. The hiker looked around. Nobody was visible. The terrain at that point is an alpine meadow with scattered subalpine fir, open with good visibility for approximately 200 yards in most directions. The hiker moved the boots to the side of the trail, assuming someone would return for them, and continued east. When Floyd did not return to the lodge by evening, his wife contacted the rangers. They searched the Highline Trail the following morning. They found the boots where the hiker had moved them, to the side of the trail. Dogs tracked Floyd's scent from the boots approximately 150 yards north of the trail, through the alpine meadow, across a drainage, to the edge of a seasonal stream. The stream was approximately 6 feet wide and 4 inches deep, barely a trickle running over smooth rock. Floyd's scent ended at the stream. Floyd Erickson was not in the stream. He was not across the stream. He was not in the meadow. He was not on the mountain. 216 searchers covered the area for 13 days. They did not find Floyd. His wife visits the Highline Trail every August. She walks to the spot where his boots were found. She stands there for approximately 20 minutes and then walks back to the lodge. She told me the boots are the last thing Floyd touched. She said Floyd laced those boots every morning at the lodge. She said the lacing was a ritual. Right boot first, cross lace from the bottom. Pull tight at every eyelet. Tie at the top. Then the left. The same sequence every morning for 23 years of hiking in Glacier. She said Floyd unlaced those boots on the trail. She said unlacing is the reverse of the ritual. She said the reverse of the morning ritual is the evening ritual. She said Floyd performed the evening ritual at 11 in the morning on a mountain trail 7 miles from the lodge. She said Floyd was coming home. She said he was performing the sequence of arriving home. She said whatever Floyd was walking toward when he left those boots was, for Floyd, home. She said Floyd has been home for 9 years. She said she does not know where home is. The fourth case moves to the North Cascades of Washington State. A 26-year-old wildlife biology graduate student named Maren Solheim was conducting field research on a watershed in the remote eastern section of the park. She was 3 weeks into a 5-week solo field assignment, camping at a base camp and hiking to monitoring stations along a river system. On September 3, 2020, Maren left her base camp at approximately 7 in the morning to hike to a monitoring station approximately 4 miles upstream. She carried her field equipment, a radio, a GPS, and lunch. She was wearing leather field boots that she had been issued by the university. She checked in by radio at 10:15. Normal report. Station functioning. Water levels consistent. She planned to check one more station upstream and return to base camp by 3. She did not return by 3. She did not return by 6. The project coordinator at the university contacted the park service. Rangers found Maren's field equipment at the upstream monitoring station. Her GPS was on a rock beside the station equipment box. Her radio was beside the GPS. Her lunch was in her pack, which was leaning against a tree approximately 10 feet from the station. Her boots were on the trail between the 2 monitoring stations, placed side by side. Laces loosened. Dogs tracked Maren's scent from the boots approximately 80 yards east of the trail through dense forest to a small tributary creek. The creek was approximately 5 feet wide and 6 inches deep. The scent ended at the creek. Maren Solheim has never been found. Her advisor at the university told me Maren's boots are in a storage locker at the park's evidence facility. He said he has seen photographs of the boots. He said the boots are placed side by side, laces loosened, exactly the way every other pair of boots in these cases is placed. He said he has a photograph of boots from a case on the Appalachian Trail in 2012. He said the photographs are interchangeable. The placement is identical. The lacing is identical. The orientation is identical. He said 2 people who never met, in 2 different parks, on 2 different sides of the country, 8 years apart, placed their boots on the trail in the same way. He said the probability of identical placement by coincidence is calculable. He said it is very low. He said he is a scientist. He said very low probability events require investigation. He said no one is investigating. The 5th case returns to the Appalachian Trail, to the Shenandoah section of Virginia in April of 2023. A 55-year-old cardiovascular surgeon named Philip Crane was section hiking a 30-mile stretch of the AT through Shenandoah National Park. He was an experienced hiker who had completed approximately 1,200 miles of the trail over 7 years. He was methodical, fit, and carried a satellite communicator. On April 14th, Philip sent his evening check-in. Good day. Clear weather. Camped near a shelter. Planning to push 15 miles tomorrow. On April 15th, his satellite track showed normal northward movement until approximately 2 in the afternoon. At 2:03, the track stopped. Not gradually. The device transmitted a position on the trail and then did not transmit again. The battery was later found to be at 44%. The device was functioning. It simply stopped transmitting. Rangers found his satellite communicator on the trail beside his pack. His sleeping pad and bag were in the pack. His water filter was in the side pocket. His food was in a dry bag inside the pack. His boots were on the trail, approximately 15 feet from the pack, placed side by side. Laces loosened. The boots were facing north, the direction Philip had been hiking. Dogs tracked his scent from the boots approximately 90 yards west of the trail, downhill, through dense Appalachian hardwood, to a creek. The creek was approximately 8 feet wide and knee-deep, flowing over a rocky bed. The scent ended at the creek. Philip Crane has never been found. His wife told me the laces are the detail she focuses on. She said Philip was a surgeon. She said surgeons tie precise knots. She said Philip's bootlaces were always tied in a specific pattern, a modified surgeon's knot that he used for everything: boots, packages, the drawstring on his scrub pants. She said the knot was distinctive. She said anyone who knew Philip could identify his knot. She said the boots on the trail had loosened laces, not untied. She said the laces were pulled through the eyelets far enough to allow the boot to be removed, but not untied. She said Philip did not do this. She said Philip untied his knots. He did not pull laces through eyelets. He untied, then removed, then retied for storage. That was his sequence. She said the laces on the trail boots were loosened by someone who does not untie knots. She said Philip unties knots. She said whoever loosened those laces was not Philip. She said, or Philip was not Philip when he loosened them. She said a surgeon who stops performing his own knot sequence is a surgeon who is no longer operating under his own protocol. She said something overrode Philip's protocol. She said Philip's hands loosened the laces, but Philip's training did not guide the loosening. She said the hands were Philip's. The decision was not. 5 cases: Appalachian Trail, Mount Shasta, Glacier National Park, North Cascades, Appalachian Trail again, 5 different parks, 5 different states, 5 different people, 5 different years, the same boots, the same placement, the same loosened laces, the same walk into the forest barefoot, the same scent trail to water, the same result. The boots are step 1. The boots are not the end. The boots are the beginning. What the boots tell us is that whatever happens to these people begins with a decision that is not their own. A decision to stop walking. A decision to remove their boots. A decision to place the boots carefully, side by side. Laces loosened, as if arriving at a destination. The decision is made by the person's hands. It is not made by the person's mind. The surgeon does not use his own knot. The ultra-runner walks when she could run. The schoolteacher performs his evening ritual at 11 in the morning. The graduate student leaves her equipment at a monitoring station and walks away. The hands obey. The mind does not direct. Something else directs. What directs is the subject of the next section, because the boots are step 1. And in every case, before the boots are removed, something happens. Something that the witnesses in several cases described. Something that the missing people themselves described in their last messages. They heard something. Step 2. The sound. The sequence begins before the boots. The sequence begins with sound. In several of the cases documented in this video, the missing person or a nearby witness described hearing something in the minutes or hours before the disappearance. The descriptions are remarkably consistent across cases that span different states, different years, and different terrain types. The people providing these descriptions do not know each other. They have never communicated. They are describing the same thing independently. The sound has 3 characteristics that appear in every description. It is low, not bass, not rumbling, low in the way that a cello is low, a sustained tone that sits beneath the other sounds of the forest. It is directional. The people who hear it can point to where it is coming from. It comes from a specific location, not from everywhere. It comes from somewhere off the trail, in the forest, in a direction that is not the direction the person is traveling. It stops. The sound does not fade. It does not diminish with distance. It runs for a duration, typically described as 15 seconds to 2 minutes, and then it stops as if turned off. The silence after the sound is described by multiple witnesses as heavier than the silence before it. as if the forest is holding its breath. The retired detective identified sound descriptions in 11 of his 43 boot placement cases. In 11 cases, either the missing person mentioned a sound in their last communication, or a witness in the area reported hearing something unusual in the time frame of the disappearance. 11 of 43. Approximately 1 in 4. The detective believes the actual number is higher. He believes many people hear the sound and do not mention it because they cannot describe it. He believes the sound is present in every case, and the documentation captures it only when someone happens to say something. He may be right. The 5 cases in this section suggest that the sound is step 1 in the sequence. The sound precedes the boots. The sound draws attention to a direction. The person turns toward the direction. The person removes their boots. The person walks. The first sound case happened on the Appalachian Trail in Tennessee in May of 2016. A 37-year-old section hiker I will call Nathan Briggs was hiking through the Great Smoky Mountains when he sent a satellite message to his wife at approximately 7 in the evening. The message read something weird tonight. Sitting at the shelter, and there is a sound from the valley below. Not an animal, not wind, like a hum, low and steady. Been going for about a minute. Other hiker here too, he hears it. Probably just some geological thing. Will write more tomorrow. Love you. Nathan did not write more tomorrow. He did not send another message. His satellite device transmitted his stationary position at the shelter until approximately 3 in the morning, when it transmitted a position approximately 200 yards south of the shelter. Then the device stopped transmitting. Rangers found his satellite device on the trail 200 yards south of the shelter. His boots were beside the device, placed side by side, laces loosened. The other hiker at the shelter, a southbound through hiker I will call Douglas Van, was interviewed by investigators. Douglas confirmed the sound. He said it started at approximately 6:50 in the evening. He said it came from the valley to the west. He said it was low, steady, and continuous. He said it lasted approximately 90 seconds and then stopped. He said the silence after the sound was dense. He said the word dense is the best he can do. He said the forest felt thicker after the sound stopped. Douglas said he went to sleep at approximately 9. He said Nathan was in his sleeping bag when Douglas fell asleep. He said he did not hear Nathan leave the shelter. He said he woke at approximately 6 in the morning, and Nathan's sleeping bag was empty, and Nathan's boots were not in the shelter. Douglas said he did not hear the sound again after the initial occurrence at 6:50. He said the sound happened once. He said it was enough. Nathan Briggs has never been found. His scent trail led from the boots south along the trail for approximately 50 yards, and then west, off the trail, downhill into the valley where the sound had come from. The scent ended at a creek at the bottom of the valley. The creek was approximately 12 feet wide and shin deep. The sound came from the valley. Nathan walked toward the valley. Nathan's scent ended in the valley. The sound was the direction. Nathan followed the direction, but Nathan did not follow immediately. The sound happened at 6:50 in the evening. Nathan left the shelter at approximately 3 in the morning. 8 hours. 8 hours between hearing the sound and following it. Nathan went to sleep. Nathan lay in his sleeping bag for hours. And then, in the middle of the night, Nathan got up and walked toward the valley where the sound had come from 8 hours earlier. The sound had stopped at 6:51. Nathan followed a sound that had been silent for 8 hours. The direction was stored. The instruction was received in the evening and executed in the dark. This is not the behavior of a person reacting to a stimulus. This is the behavior of a person completing a task that was assigned hours earlier. The second sound case happened on Mount Shasta in September of 2019. A climbing party of 3 was camped at approximately 10,400 feet on the south side of the mountain, preparing for a summit attempt the following morning. At approximately 8 in the evening, all 3 members of the party heard a sound. The lead climber, a 44-year-old mountaineer I will call Russ Dempsey, described the sound in a written statement to investigators. He said it came from above them on the mountain. He said it was low and steady. He said it was not wind. He said the wind was coming from the west and the sound was coming from the north, from higher on the mountain. He said the sound lasted approximately 2 minutes and then stopped. He said the silence after the sound was the most complete silence he had experienced in 20 years of climbing. He said the mountain was holding still. He said even the wind paused. He said one member of the party, a 31-year-old climber I will call Kevin Driscoll, became very quiet after the sound stopped. He said Kevin did not speak for approximately 10 minutes. When he did speak, he said he wanted to go up. Russ told him they were going up in the morning. Kevin said he meant now. Russ said no, the route was not safe in the dark. Kevin did not argue. He went into his tent. At approximately 4 in the morning, Russ woke to begin the summit preparation. Kevin's tent was empty. Kevin's climbing boots were outside the tent, placed side by side, laces loosened. Kevin's crampons, ice axe, and helmet were inside the tent. His climbing harness was inside the tent. He had left his tent without boots and without any of his climbing equipment. Russ and the third climber searched the immediate area. They found Kevin's footprints in the snow heading uphill, directly toward the summit, walking in a straight line up the fall line of the mountain. The prints were bare feet in snow. The prints continued uphill for approximately 300 yards and then ended on a section of hard ice where footprints do not register. Kevin Driscoll has never been found. His body was not on the summit. His body was not on any route. His body was not in any crevasse that the search teams checked. Kevin heard the sound. The sound came from above. Kevin wanted to go up immediately. He waited until his companions were asleep. He removed his boots. He walked toward the source of the sound, barefoot, in snow, at 10,400 feet, without equipment. The sound gave Kevin a direction, up. Kevin followed. The third sound case happened in the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness of northern Minnesota in August of 2014. A group of 4 friends on a canoe trip was camped on an island in a large lake. At approximately 9 in the evening, as they sat around a fire on the lakeshore, 3 of the 4 heard a sound. The sound came from across the lake, from the far shore, approximately half a mile away. The 3 who heard it described it consistently, low, steady, not an animal, not a boat motor, not thunder. A sustained tone that lasted approximately 45 seconds and then stopped. The 4th member of the group, a 40-year-old man I will call Patrick Hollis, did not confirm hearing the sound. When asked later by investigators, he said he did not remember a sound. He said he remembered sitting by the fire, and then he remembered being in his tent. He said the time between the fire and the tent was missing. His 3 friends said Patrick changed after the sound. They said he became still. They said he was looking across the lake toward the far shore where the sound had come from. They said his expression was focused, not frightened. They said he looked like a person who is listening to something important. They said Patrick stood up from the fire at approximately 9:15 and said he was going to bed. He walked to his tent. They assumed he went to sleep. At approximately 6 the following morning, the group discovered that Patrick's tent was empty. His sleeping bag was unzipped. His boots were outside the tent, placed side by side, laces loosened. His paddle was in his canoe, which was still pulled up on the island shore. All 4 canoes were accounted for. Patrick had not paddled off the island. Dogs were brought to the island by boat. They tracked Patrick's scent from his tent to the lake shore on the side of the island, facing the far shore where the sound had come from. The scent went into the water. Patrick Hollis has never been found. He was on an island in a lake. He did not take a canoe. His scent went into the water on the side of the island facing the source of the sound. He walked into a lake in the dark, toward a sound that his friends heard, and he said he did not remember. The 4th sound case happened at Glacier National Park in July of 2021. A husband and wife were day hiking the Avalanche Lake Trail, one of the most popular hikes in the park. At approximately noon, as they rested at the lakeshore, the wife heard a sound. I will call them Janet and Philip Rowan. Their names have been changed at their request. Janet described the sound to investigators. She said it came from across the lake, from the cliff face on the far side. She said it was low, steady, and lasted approximately 30 seconds. She said it was not a waterfall. She said the waterfalls on the cliff were visible, and she could distinguish their sound from what she was hearing. She said the sound was beneath the waterfall sound, under it, as if the cliff itself was producing a tone. She said she turned to Philip to ask if he heard it. Philip was standing. He had been sitting beside her on a log. He was now standing and looking across the lake toward the cliff. She said his expression was calm, but concentrated. She said he looked like a person solving a math problem. She said Philip, without looking at her, said, "I need to go over there." She said she asked what he meant. He said across the lake. She said the lake is half a mile across and the water is 40 degrees. He did not respond. He sat down again. He did not mention it again. They hiked back to the trailhead together. They drove to their hotel. They ate dinner. Philip was quiet, but not unusual. They went to bed at approximately 10. Janet woke at approximately 2 in the morning. Philip was not in the bed. His car keys were on the nightstand. His wallet was on the nightstand. His hiking boots were by the door. She checked the hotel parking lot. The car was there. She called the front desk. Nobody had seen Philip leave. Rangers found Philip's boots at the Avalanche Lake trailhead at approximately 8 in the morning. The boots were placed beside the trail register post, side by side. Laces loosened. Dogs tracked Philip's scent from the boots up the trail to Avalanche Lake. The scent went along the lake shore to a point on the north side of the lake, directly across from the cliff face where Janet had heard the sound. The scent went into the water. Philip Rowan drove from his hotel to the trailhead in the middle of the night. He left his car keys and wallet at the hotel, but took his boots. He drove to the trailhead. He placed his boots beside the trail register. He hiked barefoot to the lake. He walked to the north shore, facing the cliff. He walked into the water. The lake was searched by divers. Philip was not in the lake. The sound came from the cliff. Philip needed to go to the cliff. Philip walked into the water toward the cliff. Philip is not in the water. Janet told me the sound is the detail she replays. She said she heard it. She said it was real. She said Philip heard it too. She said the difference between her and Philip is that the sound did not tell her to go. It told Philip to go. She said the same sound reached both of them, and it selected Philip, and it didn't select her. She said she does not know the selection criteria. She said she is grateful she does not meet them. The fifth sound case happened on the Appalachian Trail in Vermont in October of 2022. This case is different from the others because the missing person recorded the sound. A 29-year-old thru-hiker I will call Marcus Feld was hiking southbound through the Green Mountains. He was carrying a phone with a voice memo application that he used to record trail notes and observations. He typically recorded 2 to 3 memos per day, narrating trail conditions, weather, and his thoughts. On October 8th, at approximately 4 in the afternoon, Marcus recorded a memo that was later recovered from his phone's cloud backup. The memo is 1 minute and 47 seconds long. For the first 30 seconds, Marcus describes the trail conditions and the fall foliage. His voice is normal, relaxed. The voice of a person walking through a beautiful forest on an autumn afternoon. At 31 seconds, Marcus stops talking. The audio continues. At 34 seconds, something is audible on the recording. It is low. It is steady. It rises slightly in pitch over approximately 10 seconds and then holds at a constant tone. The tone continues for approximately 40 seconds. Background sounds, wind in trees, footsteps on trail are present, but the tone is distinct and separate from them. At approximately 1 minute, 14 seconds, the tone stops. The recording captures approximately 3 seconds of silence. Not the ambient silence of a forest, a denser silence, a silence that sounds like the forest has paused. At 1 minute, 17 seconds, Marcus speaks. He says one word, "Where?" The recording ends at 1 minute, 47 seconds. Marcus does not speak again during the remaining 30 seconds. His footsteps are not audible. The recording captures only the dense silence of the forest. Marcus's phone was found on the trail the following day. His boots were beside the phone, placed side by side, laces loosened. Dogs tracked his scent from the boots approximately 100 yards east of the trail, downhill, to a creek. The creek was approximately 6 feet wide and 8 inches deep. The scent ended at the creek. Marcus Feld has never been found. The audio recording has been analyzed by an acoustics laboratory at a university in New England. The laboratory confirmed that the tone on the recording is not a digital artifact. It is not a compression error. It is not interference from a cell tower or electronic device. The tone is an environmental sound captured by the phone's microphone. The sound exists in the physical environment where Marcus was walking. The laboratory characterized the tone as a low-frequency sustained emission in the range of approximately 70 to 90 hertz. The source could not be identified. The laboratory noted that the frequency range is consistent with geological processes such as seismic activity, volcanic emissions, or large-scale water movement through underground channels. The laboratory noted that the location on the Appalachian Trail in Vermont is not known for any of these processes. The laboratory could not identify the source of the sound. The laboratory documented the sound. The documentation sits in a file. Marcus said one word after the sound stopped. Where? He was asking where the sound came from. Or he was asking where he was supposed to go. Or he was asking where he was, because the silence after the sound had changed his sense of location. The recording does not clarify which question Marcus was asking. The recording captures a sound, a silence, and a word. The rest is in the forest with Marcus. 5 sound cases: Appalachian Trail, Mount Shasta, Boundary Waters, Glacier National Park, Appalachian Trail again. 5 different locations, 5 different people. The same sound: low, steady, directional, duration of 30 seconds to 2 minutes, followed by a silence that witnesses describe as dense, thick, heavy, followed by the person who heard it removing their boots and walking toward the source. The sound is step 0. The sound precedes the boots. The sound tells the person where to go. The person goes. But the sound does not explain the boots. A person who hears a sound and walks toward it can walk toward it in boots. The sound does not require barefoot travel. The boots are a separate step. The sound says where. The boots say something else. The boots say the person is no longer hiking. The boots say the person has arrived. The sound is the invitation. The boots are the acceptance. The retired detective spent 3 months analyzing the relationship between the sound cases and the boot placement cases. He said the sound cases are a subset of the boot cases. Every person who heard the sound also removed their boots. Not every person who removed their boots has a documented sound. He said this does not mean the sound was absent in the non-documented cases. He said it means nobody was close enough to hear it, or the person did not mention it in their last communication. He said the sound is the trigger. He said the boots are the response. He said the equipment arrangement is the preparation. He said the perpendicular walk is the approach. He said the water is the arrival. He said he has listened to the Marcus Feld recording more than 200 times. He said the tone on the recording is the clearest piece of physical evidence in his entire database. He said everything else, the boots, the packs, the scent trails, is aftermath. The recording is the event itself. The recording captures the moment when the sequence begins. He said the tone is 70 to 90 hertz. He said 70 hertz is approximately the frequency of a very low D note on a piano. He said 90 hertz is approximately the frequency of a low F sharp. He said the range between these two notes is a minor third. He said a minor third is the interval that Western music theory associates with sadness, with longing, with calling. He said he is not a musicologist. He said he is a detective. He said the interval may be coincidence. He said the interval is also the frequency range that the human inner ear is most sensitive to in quiet environments. He said at 70 to 90 hertz, the human ear can detect sounds at extremely low volume levels. He said a person standing on a quiet trail in a forest would be able to detect a 70 hertz tone at a volume that a person standing on a city street would not register. He said the sound is optimized for the forest. He said the frequency is chosen, or has evolved, to reach a person in the specific acoustic environment of a wilderness trail. He said city noise would mask it. He said wind would mask it. He said other hikers talking would mask it. He said the sound requires silence, solitude, and a quiet trail. He said the three conditions for hearing the sound are the same three conditions that define the people who disappear: alone, in wilderness, in quiet. He said the sound does not come to crowds. The sound comes to the solitary. The sound finds the person who is alone and quiet and open to the forest, and the sound enters them through the ear, and the ear sends the signal to the brain, and the brain sends the signal to the hands, and the hands unlace the boots. He said the entire sequence from sound to water takes approximately 15 to 45 minutes based on the GPS data he has analyzed. He said the fastest case was 11 minutes from the last normal GPS reading to the final stationary position. He said the slowest was approximately 3 hours. He said the average is approximately 26 minutes. He said 26 minutes is not long. He said 26 minutes is a lunch break. He said in 26 minutes, a person hears a sound, removes their boots, arranges their equipment, walks perpendicular to the trail, reaches water, and is gone. He said 26 minutes is how long it takes the wilderness to collect a person. What happens after the acceptance is the subject of the next section. Step 3. The equipment. After the sound. After the boots. The equipment. In every case documented in this video, the missing person leaves their equipment behind. This is expected. A person who removes their boots and walks barefoot into the forest has already committed to leaving. The equipment, the pack, the radio, the GPS, the stove, the sleeping bag, these things belong to the trail. The person is no longer on the trail. The equipment stays. But the way the equipment is left is the detail that the retired detective identified as the third element of the sequence. The equipment is not dropped. It is not scattered. It is not abandoned in the way a person abandons things when they are fleeing or confused. The equipment is arranged. The arrangement is specific. It repeats across cases with a consistency that the detective described as mechanical. The same arrangement, the same positioning, as if the person is following a protocol for equipment storage that has nothing to do with any camping or hiking protocol that exists. The arrangement has three elements that appear in every case. The pack is upright, not fallen on its side, not lying on its back. Upright, standing on its base, leaning against a tree or rock or sitting on flat ground. The pack is in the position it would be in on a store shelf, ready to be picked up. The communication device is separated from the pack and placed on a flat surface, a rock, a log, the ground. The device is powered on. The device is not in the pack where it normally rides. It is removed from the pack and placed apart from it, as if the person is making the device visible, as if the person wants the device to be found separately from the pack. The personal items remain in the pack: wallet, phone, keys, food, water, first aid. Everything that identifies the person and sustains the person stays in the pack. Nothing is taken. The person walks away with nothing except the clothes on their back and their bare feet. The arrangement says the person is not coming back for the pack, but the arrangement also says the person is not in distress. A person in distress does not stand their pack upright. A person in distress does not separate their communication device and place it on a flat rock. A person in distress leaves a mess. These people leave an arrangement. The arrangement is a checkout. The person is checking out of the trail system. They are turning in their equipment. They are placing everything where it will be found, in order, accounted for. They are not losing their gear. They are returning it. The first equipment case is also a ranger case. It happened in the Bitterroot National Forest of Montana in July of 2011. A backcountry ranger I will call Dale Sorensen was on a 5-day solo patrol in the Selway Bitterroot Wilderness. He was 47 years old and had been a ranger for 15 seasons. On July 14th, Dale radioed his check-in at 7 in the evening. Normal conditions, clear weather. He planned to camp at a lake approximately 3 miles from his current position and continue his patrol the following morning. He did not check in on July 15th. Rangers hiked to the lake on July 16th. They found Dale's camp. His tent was pitched on a flat area near the lake shore. His sleeping bag was inside, unrolled. His food bag was hanging from a bear line approximately 100 yards from the tent. His pack was leaning against a granite boulder near the tent, upright, positioned as if set down by a person who was coming right back. His radio was on a flat rock approximately 8 feet from the pack, powered on, battery at 67%, tuned to the park frequency. His revolver was in its holster, which was placed on the rock beside the radio. The holster was snapped shut. His boots were beside the rock, side by side. Laces loosened. The arrangement was precise. Pack upright against the boulder. Radio and revolver on the flat rock separated from the pack. Boots beside the rock. The triangle of equipment, pack, communication device, footwear, arranged within a 10-foot radius. Nothing scattered. Nothing out of place. Dogs tracked Dale's scent from the rock approximately 140 yards north, downhill through lodgepole pine forest to a small creek that feeds the lake. The creek was approximately 6 feet wide and ankle deep. The scent ended at the creek. Dale Sorensen has never been found. 15 seasons of backcountry patrol, 2,000 nights in the wilderness. He arranged his equipment beside a lake as if he were closing a chapter and walked barefoot to a creek where he stopped being a person that search dogs could find. The investigator told me the triangle is the detail he has studied. He said the pack, the radio, and the boots form a triangle in almost every case he has reviewed. The pack is the largest element. It is placed against a vertical surface, a tree, a rock, a wall. The communication device is placed on a horizontal surface at a distance of 6 to 10 feet from the pack. The boots are placed between the two or beside the device, always on the ground, always side by side. He said this triangle does not correspond to any camping practice, any military field procedure, any search and rescue protocol. It is not taught. It is not written in any manual. It is a behavior that appears only in the files of people who disappear. He said the triangle is a signature. He said the signature is consistent across decades and across the continent. He said a signature that no one teaches and no one learns, and yet everyone performs, is not a human behavior. He said it is an instruction. He said the instruction comes from whatever produces the sound. The second equipment case happened on the Pacific Crest Trail in Oregon in August of 2018. A 33-year-old thru-hiker I will call Sarah Lundberg was hiking through the Mount Jefferson Wilderness, approximately 2,000 miles into her northbound hike. She was 3 weeks from the Canadian border. She was experienced, fast, and well-equipped. On August 22nd, Sarah sent her evening satellite message. 21 miles today. Feeling strong. 3 weeks to Canada. The trail is everything I wanted it to be. On August 23rd, Sarah did not send a message. Her satellite track showed normal northward movement until approximately 11 in the morning. At 11:04, the track stopped. The device transmitted its position on the trail and then stopped transmitting. Battery was later found at 58%. Rangers found her equipment at the point where the track stopped, on a section of trail in dense Douglas fir forest at approximately 5,000 feet. Her pack was upright, leaning against a Douglas fir approximately 3 feet from the trail. Her satellite communicator was on a flat rock approximately 7 feet from the pack, powered on. Her trekking poles were leaning against the same tree as the pack, crossed at the handles. Her boots were on the trail, side by side. Laces loosened. Her food bag was in the pack. Her water filter was in the pack. Her wallet was in the pack. Everything was in the pack except Sarah. Dogs tracked her scent from the boots approximately 100 yards west of the trail, downhill through the forest, to a creek. The creek was small, approximately 4 feet wide, barely a trickle in late August. The scent ended at the creek. Sarah Lundberg was 3 weeks from completing a 5-month, 2,650-mile hike. She arranged her equipment beside the trail in the same configuration that a ranger in Montana had used 7 years earlier. She walked barefoot to a creek where her scent ended. The third equipment case happened in the Great Smoky Mountains in June of 2020. A 41-year-old emergency room physician I will call Andrea Torres was day hiking alone on a popular trail in the park. She was an experienced hiker who had been visiting the Smokies for 12 years. On June 7th, Andrea parked at a trailhead at approximately 8 in the morning. She planned to hike approximately 10 miles to a waterfall and return by late afternoon. She did not return. Rangers found her equipment approximately 6 miles from the trailhead, at a point where the trail crosses a ridge with views of the surrounding mountains. Her pack was upright, leaning against a fallen log beside the trail. Her phone was on the log, powered on, approximately 6 feet from the pack. Her water bottle was beside the phone. Her boots were on the trail. Side by side, laces loosened. The arrangement: pack against a vertical surface, device on a horizontal surface separated from the pack, boots on the trail. Dogs tracked her scent from the boots approximately 70 yards south of the trail, downhill through dense rhododendron, to a creek. The creek was approximately 8 feet wide and shin deep. The scent ended at the creek. Andrea Torres has never been found. Her husband told me the phone on the log is the detail he cannot move past. He said Andrea's phone was her connection to everything: her family, her work, her patients, her schedule. He said Andrea did not separate from her phone. He said the phone was always in her hand or in her pocket. He said placing the phone on a log 6 feet from the pack and walking away from it is not something Andrea would do. He said unless Andrea was not making the decision. He said the phone was placed on the log the way a person places an item they are returning. He said Andrea returned her phone to the log the way a person returns a borrowed book to a library shelf, carefully, in its place. Not thrown, not dropped, placed. He said Andrea was returning everything: the phone, the pack, the boots. She was returning the equipment of a person who hikes. She was no longer a person who hikes. He said he does not know what she became instead. The fourth equipment case happened on Mount Shasta in October of 2016. A 58-year-old retired firefighter I will call Warren Bosch was hiking the Clear Creek Trail on the southeast side of the mountain. He was an experienced hiker and climber who had summited Shasta 3 times by different routes. On October 9th, Warren parked at the Clear Creek trailhead and began hiking at approximately 7 in the morning. He was alone. He planned a day hike to the tree line at approximately 8,000 feet and back. He told his wife he would be home by 4. He did not return by 4. His wife called the Siskiyou County Sheriff at 6. Rangers found Warren's equipment at approximately 7,800 feet on the Clear Creek Trail, just below the tree line. His pack was upright, leaning against a whitebark pine. His satellite communicator was on a flat rock approximately 9 feet from the pack, powered on. His trekking poles were standing upright, driven into the ground beside the pack. His boots were on the trail, side by side, laces loosened. Dogs tracked Warren's scent from the boots approximately 200 yards northeast, off the trail, uphill across an open volcanic slope above the tree line, to a seasonal stream running down the mountain through a shallow gully. The stream was approximately 3 feet wide and 2 inches deep, barely a film of snowmelt over volcanic rock. The scent ended at the stream. Warren Bosch has never been found. He arranged his equipment beside a whitebark pine at the tree line in the same configuration that every other person in this section has used. Pack upright against a vertical surface. Device on a flat surface, separated. Boots side by side. Laces loose. The triangle, the checkout, the return. His wife told me the trekking poles are the detail she carries. She said Warren drove his poles into the ground beside his pack. She said trekking poles driven into the ground are standing at attention. She said it looks like a salute. She said Warren was a firefighter for 30 years. She said firefighters know how to stand at attention. She said the poles are Warren's last official act. She said after the poles, Warren was off duty. She said after the boots, Warren was somewhere else. She said the equipment on the mountain is Warren's uniform folded on a chair at the end of a career. She said Warren retired from the fire department. She said the mountain retired Warren from everything else. The fifth equipment case returns to the Appalachian Trail, to the White Mountains of New Hampshire in September of 2021. A 66-year-old retired professor I will call Eleanor Fisk was section hiking the AT through the Presidential Range, one of the most demanding sections of the entire trail. On September 9th, Eleanor reached the Lakes of the Clouds hut on the shoulder of Mount Washington. She was tired, but in good spirits. She ate dinner at the hut, spoke with other hikers, and went to bed at approximately 8:30. At approximately 10 in the evening, a hut crew member noticed that Eleanor had left the hut. Her sleeping bag was on her bunk. Her boots were beside the bunk. The crew member assumed she had gone to the restroom. She did not return. At approximately 6 the following morning, the hut crew found Eleanor's equipment on the alpine terrain approximately 100 yards south of the hut. Her pack was upright, leaning against a cairn on the trail toward Mount Monroe. Her headlamp was on a flat rock approximately 7 feet from the pack, powered on, light shining into the darkness. Her trekking poles were leaning against the cairn beside the pack. Her boots were on the trail, side by side. Laces loosened. She had left the hut in the middle of the night without boots, walked 100 yards in the dark across alpine terrain at 5,200 feet, and arranged her equipment beside a cairn in the same configuration that appears in every other case in this section. Dogs tracked Eleanor's scent from the boots south along the trail toward Mount Monroe for approximately 200 yards. The scent then left the trail and headed west, downhill, across a talus field, approximately 150 yards, to the edge of a snowfield that lingered in a north-facing cirque. The scent ended at the snowfield. Eleanor Fisk has never been found. She heard something. The hut crew did not hear anything unusual that night. But Eleanor left her boots at the bunk, walked outside in the dark, arranged her equipment in the triangle beside the cairn, and walked barefoot across talus to a snowfield. She was 66 years old. She was barefoot. She was on talus, which is sharp angular rock. She was above tree line at night in the White Mountains, where the temperature was approximately 35 degrees. She walked across sharp rock in freezing temperatures in the dark without a headlamp. She left her headlamp on the rock, powered on, shining at nothing. She left the light behind. She walked into the dark. 5 equipment cases: Montana, Oregon, Tennessee, California, New Hampshire. 5 different parks, 5 different states, 5 different people, 5 different years. The same arrangement. Pack upright against a vertical surface. Communication device on a flat horizontal surface, 6 to 10 feet from the pack, powered on. Boots on the trail, side by side. Laces loosened. The triangle. The triangle is step 3. The sound says where. The boots say I have arrived. The equipment says I am not coming back. What says where the person goes is step 4, because after the boots and after the equipment, the person walks. And the direction they walk is not random. It is not toward the trailhead. It is not toward shelter. It is not toward safety. It is perpendicular to the trail. Every time. Step 4. The direction. The person hears the sound. The person removes their boots. The person arranges their equipment in the triangle. The person walks. The direction is always perpendicular to the trail, not along the trail toward the next shelter, not along the trail back toward the trailhead, not in the general direction of a road or a building or any logical destination. The person walks at a right angle to the direction they were hiking. If they were hiking north, they walk east or west. If they were hiking east, they walk north or south. The turn is 90 degrees. The path is straight. The retired detective measured the angle of departure from the trail in 37 of his 43 cases, where sufficient scent trail data was available. The average angle was 87 degrees from the trail direction. The median was 90 degrees. Not one case showed a departure angle of less than 75 degrees or more than 105 degrees. The departures are perpendicular within a narrow range. He said a random sample of departure angles would produce a uniform distribution from 0 to 180 degrees. Lost people wander at every angle. Disoriented people circle. People fleeing run in the direction away from the threat, which can be any direction. The only behavioral model that produces consistent 90-degree departures is a person who is responding to a stimulus that is perpendicular to their direction of travel. He said the sound is that stimulus. The sound comes from the side. The person turns toward the sound. The turn is 90 degrees because the sound is 90 degrees from the trail. He said this means the sound is not coming from ahead on the trail or behind on the trail. The sound comes from the forest, from the side, from the wilderness that borders the trail. He said the trail is a line through the wilderness. The sound comes from the wilderness, not from the line. The person leaves the line and enters the wilderness at a right angle, following the sound. The shortest path from a line to a point beside the line is a perpendicular. He said the missing people are taking the shortest path to whatever is calling them. The first direction case happened on the Appalachian Trail in Georgia in March of 2017. A 31-year-old thru-hiker I will call Jamie Colson had started at Springer Mountain on March 1st and was 6 days into his hike. His satellite tracker showed him hiking north at a steady pace for 6 days. On March 7th, at approximately 1:30 in the afternoon, his tracker showed a 90-degree turn to the east, off the trail, into the Chattahoochee National Forest. His speed did not change. He was walking at the same pace off-trail as he had been walking on trail, 2.1 miles per hour. The track continued east for approximately 3/4 of a mile. Then it stopped. The device continued transmitting from the stationary position for approximately 4 hours before the battery died. Rangers found his equipment at the last stationary position, pack upright against a poplar tree, satellite device on a flat rock, boots on a section of level ground, side by side. Laces loosened. Dogs tracked his scent from the equipment east, continuing in the same direction he had been walking. The scent continued for approximately 60 yards and ended at a creek. The creek was approximately 10 feet wide and calf deep, running south through a narrow drainage. Jamie Colson walked north on the AT for 6 days. On day 7, at 1:30 in the afternoon, he turned 90 degrees east and walked 3/4 of a mile into the forest at the same pace. He stopped. He arranged his equipment. He continued east for 60 more yards. He reached a creek. His scent ended. The angle of departure was 90 degrees. The path was straight. The destination was a creek. The second direction case happened on the Continental Divide Trail in Montana in August of 2015. A 44-year-old section hiker I will call Thomas Reardon was hiking south through the Bob Marshall Wilderness. His GPS track showed him hiking south along the CDT for 3 days. On August 14th, at approximately 10 in the morning, his track turned 90 degrees west, off the trail, into roadless wilderness. He walked west for approximately 1 mile at a steady pace. The track ended. His equipment was found at the last GPS position, pack upright against a subalpine fir, GPS on a rock. Boots on the ground, side by side, laces loosened. Dogs tracked his scent west from the equipment for approximately 100 yards to a tributary of the South Fork of the Flathead River. The tributary was approximately 15 feet wide and knee-deep. The scent ended at the tributary. Thomas Reardon was hiking south. He turned 90 degrees west. He walked 1 mile. He arranged his equipment. He continued west to a creek. His scent ended. The third direction case happened on Mount Shasta in June of 2021. A 28-year-old rock climber I will call Erin Blackwell was ascending the Hotlam Bolam Ridge route on the north side of the mountain. Her GPS watch tracked her ascending steadily northeast along the ridge. At approximately 8,300 feet elevation, at approximately 9:45 in the morning, the GPS track turned 90 degrees southeast, off the ridge, across an open volcanic slope that descends toward Whitney Glacier. Her pace did not change. She was moving at the same speed across the open slope as she had been moving along the ridge, approximately 1 mile per hour. The track continued southeast for approximately half a mile. The track ended. Her GPS watch was found at the last position, Beside it were her climbing boots, side by side. Laces loosened. Her harness and helmet were on the ground beside the boots. Her pack was upright against a volcanic boulder. Dogs were not deployed on this section of the mountain due to the technical terrain. Visual searches covered the slope below the last GPS position. Helicopter surveys covered the Whitney Glacier crevasse field. Erin Blackwell has never been found. She was ascending northeast. She turned 90 degrees southeast. She walked half a mile across an open volcanic slope. She removed her boots. She arranged her equipment. She continued walking southeast toward Whitney Glacier. The angle of departure was 90 degrees. The direction was perpendicular to her climbing route. The fourth direction case happened in Glacier National Park in September of 2019. A 52-year-old high school biology teacher I will call David Paulson was day hiking the Iceberg Lake Trail on the east side of the park. The trail runs generally west from the Many Glacier area toward Iceberg Lake. At approximately 11 in the morning, at a point approximately 3 miles from the trailhead, David left the trail. The departure point was identified by searchers based on scent dog tracking. The scent left the trail, heading north. Perpendicular to the east-west trail, David's pack was found approximately 200 yards north of the trail, at the base of a cliff band. Pack upright against the cliff. His GPS was on a flat rock beside the pack. His boots were on the ground beside the rock, side by side. Laces loosened. Dogs tracked his scent from the equipment north, along the base of the cliff, for approximately 100 yards. The scent ended at a small stream that emerged from the base of the cliff, a spring flowing from the rock. The stream was approximately 2 feet wide and 3 inches deep. David Paulson has never been found. He was hiking west. He turned 90 degrees north. He walked 200 yards to a cliff. He arranged his equipment. He walked to a spring emerging from the rock. His scent ended at water that was 3 inches deep. The fifth direction case returns to the Appalachian Trail, this time in the 100-mile wilderness of Maine in August of 2023. A 36-year-old thru-hiker I will call Rebecca Strand was hiking north through the most remote section of the AT. She was 5 months into her hike and approximately 80 miles from the northern terminus at Katahdin. Her satellite tracker showed her hiking north steadily for 4 days through the 100-mile wilderness. On August 16th, at approximately 2:20 in the afternoon, the track turned 90 degrees east, off the trail, into dense spruce fir forest. The track continued east for approximately half a mile at a steady pace. Then it stopped. Her equipment was found at the last position, in a small clearing in the spruce forest, pack upright against a spruce tree, satellite device on a moss-covered rock, trekking poles leaning against the same tree, boots on the moss, side by side, laces loosened. Dogs tracked her scent east from the equipment for approximately 90 yards to a creek. The creek was approximately 8 feet wide and shin deep, running south through the spruce forest. The scent ended at the creek. Rebecca Strand was 80 miles from completing a 2,190-mile hike. She turned perpendicular to the trail and walked into the forest and arranged her equipment, and walked to a creek, and her scent ended. 5 direction cases: Georgia, Montana, Mount Shasta, Glacier National Park, Maine. 5 different trails, 5 different states, 5 different compass directions of travel, 5 perpendicular turns, 5 departures at approximately 90 degrees from the trail. The direction is not determined by the terrain. It is not determined by the landscape. It is determined by the trail. The person turns perpendicular to whatever direction they were traveling. The forest is on both sides of every trail. The sound could come from either side. The person turns toward the sound and walks at a right angle to their previous direction. The consistency of the angle is the evidence that the retired detective considers most significant. He said lost people do not walk at consistent angles. Confused people do not walk at consistent angles. People responding to a fixed stimulus walk at consistent angles. The stimulus is fixed. The stimulus is perpendicular to the trail. The stimulus is in the forest. He said the stimulus is the sound. The sound comes from the forest at a right angle to the trail. The person hears the sound. The person turns 90 degrees. The person removes their boots. The person arranges their equipment. The person walks toward the sound. He said the direction data also reveals something about the speed of the walk. He said in 31 cases where GPS data tracks the perpendicular movement, the person walks at a consistent pace, not faster than their hiking pace, not slower, the same speed. He said a person who is frightened moves faster. A person who is injured moves slower. A person who is confused varies their speed. He said these people do not vary. They walk at the same pace off the trail as they walked on the trail. They walk through forest without a path, at the same speed they walked on a maintained trail. He said walking through trailless forest at trail speed requires either extraordinary fitness or extraordinary focus, or the absence of awareness that the terrain has changed. He said he believes the people are not aware that the terrain has changed. He said the people walk off the trail and they continue to experience the walking the same way they experienced it on the trail. He said the forest is the trail for them. The direction is the trail for them. The water at the end is the destination, the same way the shelter or the trailhead was the destination when they were hiking. He said the person's experience of the walk does not change when they leave the trail. He said only the evidence changes. The GPS track leaves the trail. The scent leaves the trail. The boot prints leave the trail. The person, in their experience, may still be on the trail. The person may walk to a creek in bare feet through dense forest and experience the walk as normal, as expected, as the next logical step on a hike that has been rerouted by a sound they cannot resist. He said this is the most frightening possibility in his database. Not that people are taken against their will, but that people are taken with their full cooperation because their perception of reality has been altered so that walking barefoot through trailless forest to a shallow creek feels like walking on a maintained trail to a scenic viewpoint. He said the people may not know they are leaving. He said the people may experience the sequence as a continuation of their hike. He said the boots come off because the trail, in their perception, has become a place where boots are not needed. He said the equipment is arranged because the trail, in their perception, has reached a point where equipment is no longer required. He said the person arrives at the water believing they have arrived at a destination. He said the destination feels right. He said the destination feels like home. He said he remembers what the wife of the Glacier case told him. Floyd was coming home. Whatever Floyd was walking toward, for Floyd, was home. He said Floyd walked home. He said all of them walk home. He said the sound tells them where home is, and the walk takes them there, and the water is the front door, and they take off their boots at the door, the way every person takes off their boots at the door. He said the sequence is 4 steps at this point: sound, boots, equipment, direction. He said there is one more step. Step 5, the water. Every scent trail ends at water. Every single one. In every case documented in this video, the missing person's scent trail terminates at a body of water. A creek, a stream, a river, a lake, a spring, a seasonal trickle running over rock. The water varies in size, in depth, in flow rate. The water does not vary in function. The function is termination. The scent arrives at water and does not continue. The water is always shallow. This is the detail that investigators note most frequently in their reports. The water at the termination point is not deep enough to drown in. It is not fast enough to carry a body. It is not concealed enough to hide a person. The water is ankle deep, shin deep, knee deep at the most. A person standing in the water would be visible from the bank. A person lying in the water would be found by the search team that walks the creek the following morning. The people are not in the water. The people are not found in the water. The divers do not find them. The dogs do not indicate them. The water is searched and the water is empty. The retired detective documented water termination in every one of his 43 cases. 100%. Every scent trail ends at water. He said the statistical probability of this occurring by chance is 0. He said water termination is not a feature of the pattern. He said water termination is the pattern. He said the water is the door. He said the boots are removed before you enter a house. The equipment is arranged before you leave. The direction takes you to the entrance, and the entrance is water. He said he does not know what is on the other side of the door. He said the 43 people in his database walked through the door, and none of them have come back to report what they found. He said the door is always open. He said the door is in every creek, every stream, every trickle of water that runs through every forest in every wilderness area in the country. He said most people walk past the door without knowing it is there. He said the sound is what tells certain people that the door is open. He said the sound selects. The boots accept. The equipment surrenders. The direction approaches. The water receives. He said these are not his words. He said these are the words of the evidence, arranged in the order that the evidence presents itself. The first water case that illustrates the pattern most clearly happened in the North Cascades of Washington State in July of 2014. A 40-year-old Park Service trail worker, I will call Dennis Yule, was clearing blowdowns on a backcountry trail approximately 15 miles from the nearest road. At approximately 2 in the afternoon, Dennis's crew partner heard him stop his chainsaw. The partner was working approximately 300 yards down the trail on another blowdown. He heard Dennis's saw go to idle, then shut off. He assumed Dennis had finished his cut and was moving to the next tree. 15 minutes later, the partner walked to Dennis's work site. The saw was on the ground beside a half-cut tree. The cut was approximately 2/3 through the trunk. Dennis's hard hat was on the ground beside the saw. His chainsaw chaps were unbuckled and lying on the trail. His gloves were on top of the chaps. His pack was upright against a cedar tree. His radio was on a flat rock. His boots were on the trail, side by side. Laces loosened. He had removed his protective equipment piece by piece. Hard hat, chaps, gloves, boots. Each item placed, not dropped. The removal sequence was the reverse of the dressing sequence. A sawyer puts on boots, chaps, hard hat, gloves in that order. Dennis removed gloves, hard hat, chaps, boots. Reverse order, as if undressing at the end of a shift. Dogs tracked his scent from the boots approximately 100 yards west, downhill through old-growth cedar forest, to a creek. The creek was approximately 12 feet wide and ankle-deep, running over a gravel bed. The scent ended at the creek. Dennis Jewell has never been found. He undressed from his work equipment in reverse order, arranged his personal equipment in the triangle, and walked barefoot through old-growth forest to a creek where his scent ended. He was a 15-year trail worker who had cleared thousands of blowdowns. He stopped in the middle of a cut, undressed, and walked to water. The creek was ankle-deep. Dennis was 5'11". He did not drown in ankle-deep water. He did not fall in ankle-deep water. He walked to ankle-deep water, and his scent ended at ankle-deep water. The water received him. The second water case happened on the Appalachian Trail in Virginia in November of 2018. A 59-year-old retired postal worker, I will call Harold Neufeld, was section hiking a 20-mile stretch of the AT through the George Washington National Forest. On November 8th, Harold sent his evening satellite message. Cold day. 26 degrees at camp. Clear sky. 12 miles tomorrow, and I am done with this section. He did not send a message on November 9th. His satellite track showed him hiking north for approximately 4 miles the following morning. At approximately 10:15, the track turned 90 degrees west. Off the trail, into the forest. His equipment was found at the last GPS position, approximately 200 yards west of the AT. Pack upright against an oak. Satellite device on a flat rock. Boots on the forest floor, side by side. Laces loosened. Dogs tracked his scent from the equipment west for approximately 50 yards to a creek. The creek was approximately 6 feet wide and 6 inches deep, nearly frozen, ice forming on the rocks, the water barely moving. Harold walked barefoot to a creek in 26-degree weather. The creek was nearly frozen. The scent ended at the creek. He did not drown in 6 inches of near-frozen water. His body was not in the creek. His body was not downstream. His body was not in the forest. He walked barefoot, in November, in Virginia, in temperatures below freezing, to a creek that was 6 inches deep and turning to ice. The water does not need to be warm. The water does not need to be deep. The water does not need to flow. The water just needs to be water. The third water case happened on Mount Shasta in August of 2020. A 45-year-old geologist I will call Catherine Hale was conducting fieldwork on the Whitney Glacier, studying glacial retreat. She was working alone on the glacier at approximately 8,000 feet. On August 19th, Catherine's research partner at the base camp received her afternoon radio check-in at 2 o'clock. Normal report. Ice measurements completed. Heading back to base. Catherine did not return to base. The partner hiked to the glacier the following morning. Catherine's research equipment was arranged on a flat section of glacier. Her pack was upright on the ice. Her GPS was on a rock that protruded from the glacier surface. Her boots were on the ice, side by side. Laces loosened. The glacier surface does not retain scent well, but dogs tracked what they could from the equipment approximately 60 yards downhill to a meltwater stream running across the glacier surface. The stream was approximately 3 feet wide and 4 inches deep, running in a shallow channel carved into the ice. The scent ended at the meltwater stream. Catherine Hale was on a glacier. She walked to a meltwater stream that was 4 inches deep on the surface of the ice. The stream was not a crevasse. The stream was not a moulin. The stream was a shallow channel of water running across a flat section of glacier. Catherine's scent ended at this stream. Her research partner told me the stream is the detail that contradicts everything about glaciology that Catherine knew. He said a meltwater stream on a glacier surface is the least dangerous feature on the ice. It is shallow. It is slow. It runs in a channel that a person can step across. Catherine had been stepping across streams like this for 3 years of glacier research. She did not fall into a 4-inch stream. She did not drown in a 4-inch stream. He said the stream was the door. He said Catherine studied glaciers. He said Catherine walked through a door on the surface of a glacier, and the door was 4 inches of water. The fourth water case happened in the boundary waters of Minnesota in June of 2016. A 23-year-old camp counselor I will call Tyler Osborne was leading a group of 8 teenagers on a 5-day canoe trip. The group camped on a peninsula on a large lake. Tyler walked to a creek approximately 100 yards from camp to filter water for dinner. He did not return. His water filter was at the creek, sitting on a rock beside the water. The filter connected to a bag, the bag half full of filtered water. He had been in the middle of filtering water when he stopped. His boots were beside the water filter, side by side. Laces loosened. Dogs tracked his scent from the boots into the creek. The creek was approximately 6 feet wide and 10 inches deep. The scent went downstream for approximately 20 yards and then ended. Not at a confluence, not at a deep pool. In the middle of a 10-inch creek. Tyler Osborne was never found. He was filtering water for 8 teenagers. He stopped mid-filter. He removed his boots. He walked into a 10-inch creek. He walked 20 yards downstream. Then he was gone. The teenagers waited at camp. They called for Tyler. They walked to the creek. They found the water filter and the half-full bag and the boots. They did not find Tyler. The group leader who organized the rescue told me the half-full water bag is the detail that makes this case unbearable. He said Tyler was filtering water for dinner. He said the bag holds 4 liters. He said the bag was half full. He said Tyler stopped at 2 liters and walked into the creek. He said Tyler was doing his job. He said Tyler was responsible for 8 teenagers. He said Tyler would not abandon 8 teenagers in the boundary waters to walk into a 10-inch creek. He said Tyler did not make the decision to walk into the creek. He said the creek made the decision for Tyler. The fifth water case is the case that the retired detective considers the most important in his entire database. It happened in the Cascade Range of Oregon in September of 2022. It is important because it is the only case where the water was monitored before and after the disappearance. A research station on a creek in the Cascades was equipped with a water quality monitoring system that recorded temperature, pH, dissolved oxygen, conductivity, and flow rate every 5 minutes. The station had been recording data for 7 years as part of a long-term watershed study. On September 14th, a 47-year-old hydrologist I will call Karen Nygaard was checking the monitoring equipment at the station. She was alone. She was the researcher who had installed the station and maintained it for 7 years. She knew this creek. At approximately 11 in the morning, Karen radioed her field office. Normal report. Equipment functioning. Data downloading. She planned to finish her work and hike out by 2. She did not hike out. Rangers found her equipment at the monitoring station the following day. Her pack was upright against the station housing. Her GPS was on the station's equipment shelf. Her boots were beside the station, side by side. Laces loosened. Dogs tracked her scent from the boots to the creek, approximately 20 feet from the station. The scent ended at the creek. Karen Nygaard was never found. The monitoring station data was examined. The station recorded water conditions every 5 minutes. On September 14th, between 11 and noon, the data showed something that the research team could not explain. At 11:22, the water temperature increased by 4 degrees Fahrenheit over a period of 2 minutes. The pH shifted by 0.3 units toward alkaline. Dissolved oxygen dropped by 1.7 milligrams per liter. Conductivity increased by 12%. These changes lasted approximately 8 minutes. At 11:30, the readings returned to normal. The changes were not consistent with any known watershed event. They were not consistent with upstream contamination, storm runoff, or seasonal variation. The research team reviewed 7 years of data from the same station. The anomaly on September 14th had never occurred before. Something changed the water at 11:22. 8 minutes later, the water returned to normal. Karen disappeared between 11 and noon. The retired detective told me the monitoring data is the only quantitative evidence he has that something happens to the water at the time of the disappearance. He said the data shows that the water changed. He said the water got warmer, more alkaline, lower in oxygen, higher in conductivity. He said these changes are consistent with the water coming in contact with something that does not normally touch it. He said the changes lasted 8 minutes. He said 8 minutes may be how long the door is open. He said the door opened at 11:22. He said it closed at 11:30. He said Karen walked through it while it was open. He said the water returned to normal after the door closed. He said he does not know what the door is. He said the monitoring data proves the door exists. He said the data is in a file at a university in Oregon. He said nobody has looked at it since 2023. He said the data is the most important evidence in his career, and nobody is looking at it. 5 water cases: North Cascades, Appalachian Trail, Mount Shasta, Boundary Waters, Cascade Range. 5 different water bodies: creek, stream, meltwater channel, creek. 5 different depths: ankle deep, 6 inches, 4 inches, 10 inches, varies. All shallow, all searched, all empty. The water is step 5. The water is the last step. After the water, there are no more steps. After the water, the person is gone. The sound says where. The boots say I have arrived. The equipment says I am not coming back. The direction says perpendicular. The water says gone. Step 6. The sequence: sound, boots, equipment, direction, water. 5 steps. 5 elements that appear independently across 30 cases in this video. Each step documented in isolation. Each step verified across multiple parks, multiple states, multiple years. Now the full sequence. 5 cases where every step is visible in a single disappearance. 5 cases where the evidence shows the complete arc from the first sound to the last scent at water. 5 cases where nothing is missing from the record except the person. These are the cases that the retired detective calls the clean cases. Not because they are simple, because the evidence is complete. Every step is documented. Every transition is visible. The record shows a person walking normally on a trail, and then the record shows a person performing a 5-step sequence, and then the record shows an empty creek bank and a scent trail that ends. Clean, complete, unexplainable. The first clean case happened on the Appalachian Trail in North Carolina in October of 2017. A 53-year-old Park Service volunteer I will call Robert Hawkins was doing trail maintenance on a section of the AT near Clingman's Dome. He had been volunteering for the park for 9 years. Robert was working alone, clearing drainage ditches along the trail. His wife was volunteering at the visitor center 6 miles away by road. They planned to meet for lunch at noon. At approximately 10:15 in the morning, Robert called his wife on his cell phone. The call lasted approximately 2 minutes. His wife later provided a detailed account of the conversation to investigators. Robert said he was almost finished with his section. He said the weather was beautiful. He said the fall colors were outstanding this year. Then he paused. His wife asked if he was still there. Robert said yes, he was there. He just heard something. She asked what. He said he did not know. He said it was like a hum, low, coming from the valley to the north. He said it was probably a truck on the road somewhere. He said it stopped. He said the forest got very quiet after it stopped. He said he would finish up and meet her at noon. He said he loved her. The call ended. Robert did not meet her at noon. Rangers found his trail maintenance tools in a pile beside the trail, approximately 100 yards from where cell records placed his phone call. His pack was upright against a rock wall beside the trail. His phone was on a flat rock approximately 8 feet from the pack. Battery at 31%. His water bottle was beside the phone. His work gloves were on top of the pack. His boots were on the trail, side by side. Laces loosened. Dogs tracked his scent from the boots approximately 130 yards north of the trail, directly toward the valley where he had told his wife the sound came from. The scent went through dense hardwood forest, downhill, across a leaf-covered slope, to a creek at the bottom of the drainage. The creek was approximately 10 feet wide and ankle-deep. The scent ended at the creek. Every step is present. The sound. He heard it on the phone call, a low hum from the valley to the north. The boots, side by side. Laces loosened. The equipment, pack upright. Phone on flat rock. Triangle arrangement. The direction, north, perpendicular to the east-west trail, directly toward the source of the sound. The water, ankle-deep creek, scent termination, sound, boots, equipment, direction, water, 1 case, 5 steps, complete. Robert's wife told me the phone call is the recording she plays in her mind every night. She said Robert described the sound to her in real time. She said she heard Robert hear the sound. She said his voice changed after the sound. Not frightened, focused. She said he sounded like a person who has just been given an assignment. She said the sound gave Robert a task, and Robert accepted the task. She said Robert said the forest got very quiet after the sound stopped. She said the quiet was the space between the instruction and the action. She said Robert received the instruction. He hung up the phone. He performed the action. He walked north to the creek. She said 20 years of marriage taught her how Robert sounded when he made a decision. She said Robert made a decision in the silence after the sound. She said the decision was not to meet her at noon. She said the decision was to go north. The second clean case happened on Mount Shasta in July of 2020. A 38-year-old hiking guide I will call Stefan Larson was leading a group of 4 clients on a summit attempt via the Avalanche Gulch route. The group camped at approximately 9,800 feet at Lake Helen. At approximately 9:30 in the evening, as the group prepared for their 2 a.m. alpine start, Stefan told his clients he was going to walk to the edge of camp to check conditions on the route above. He walked approximately 50 yards uphill from the tents to a flat area with a view of the route. One client, who was adjusting her crampons at the tent, saw Stefan standing at the flat area looking up the mountain. She said he was still for approximately 30 seconds. Then she said he sat down. She assumed he was resting or looking at the stars. She went into her tent. At 2 a.m, the clients woke for the summit attempt. Stefan was not at camp. His sleeping bag was in his tent, unused. His crampons were in his tent. His ice axe was in his tent. His pack was upright against a rock at the flat area 50 yards above camp. His satellite communicator was on the rock. His headlamp was on the rock beside the communicator, powered on, the light shining uphill. His boots were on the ground beside the rock, side by side, laces loosened. One of the clients had a recording from a voice memo she made that evening to document the trip. The memo was recorded at approximately 9:25, 5 minutes before Stefan walked to the flat area. The recording is 2 minutes long. At approximately 1 minute 40 seconds, a low sound is audible on the recording. It lasts approximately 20 seconds. The sound comes from above, from higher on the mountain. Stefan heard the sound. He walked to the flat area to investigate. He looked up the mountain for 30 seconds. He sat down and removed his boots. He arranged his equipment, pack against rock, communicator on the rock, headlamp on the rock pointing uphill. He walked uphill, barefoot, on volcanic rock at 9,800 feet, toward the source of the sound. His scent was not trackable on the volcanic terrain at altitude. Search teams covered every route above Lake Helen. They checked every crevasse on the upper mountain. They did not find Stefan Larsson. Sound, boots, equipment, direction. Water was not the terminal feature in this case because the terrain was volcanic, not forested. But the direction, uphill toward the summit, would lead to the Whitney Glacier and its meltwater. The pattern suggests Stefan was walking toward water that was above him on the mountain. The third clean case happened in the Cascade Range of Washington State in September of 2021. A 49-year-old wildlife biologist I will call Ingrid Thorne was conducting a bird survey in the Alpine Lakes wilderness. She was working alone at a monitoring station approximately 8 miles from the nearest trailhead. At approximately 1 in the afternoon, Ingrid radioed her field office. She reported that she was finishing her survey and preparing to hike out. Then she said something that her field supervisor noted as unusual. She said the forest sounds changed. She said the birds stopped calling. She said it was very quiet. She said there was a tone. She said the tone was low and steady, and she could not identify the source. She said it was coming from the east. The supervisor asked if she was all right. Ingrid said yes, she was fine. The tone had stopped. She said the forest was extremely quiet now. She said she would check in from the trailhead. She did not check in. Rangers found her equipment at the monitoring station the following day. Her survey clipboard was on the station housing. Her pack was upright against a large hemlock approximately 6 feet from the station. Her radio was on a flat rock beside the pack. Her binoculars were on the rock beside the radio. Her bird identification guide was open on the rock, face down, as if she had been reading it and set it down mid-page. Her boots were beside the rock, side by side, laces loosened. Dogs tracked her scent from the boots approximately 110 yards east, directly toward where she had said the sound was coming from. The scent went through old-growth hemlock forest, across a mossy slope, to a small creek. The creek was approximately 5 feet wide and 6 inches deep, running north through a narrow gully. The scent ended at the creek. Sound. She described it on the radio. A low, steady tone from the east. Boots, side by side. Laces loosened. Equipment, pack against tree. Radio on flat rock, triangle, direction, east. Perpendicular to the north-south trail she would have hiked out on. Directly toward the source of the sound. Water, 5 feet wide, 6 inches deep. Scent termination, complete sequence. Every step documented. Her supervisor told me the radio call is what he replays. He said Ingrid described the sound in real time, the way Robert Hawkins described it to his wife on the phone. He said Ingrid said the birds stopped calling. He said birds stop calling for 2 reasons: predators and weather events. He said there was no predator. There was no weather event. The birds stopped calling because the sound was something the birds recognized as a reason to be silent. He said the birds knew what the sound meant. He said the birds went quiet because the sound meant something was happening in the forest that birds survive by not attracting attention to. He said the birds understood the sound better than the biologist who studied them. He said the biologist walked toward the sound. He said the birds did not. The 4th clean case happened on the Appalachian Trail in Maine in July of 2023. A 61-year-old retired military officer I will call Colonel James Westbrook was section hiking through the 100-mile wilderness. He had completed approximately 1,800 miles of the AT over 12 years. He was experienced, disciplined, and meticulous in his trail routine. The colonel, as his hiking partners called him, was hiking with two friends, both experienced AT hikers. On July 19th, the group camped at a shelter approximately midway through the 100-mile wilderness. At approximately 8 in the evening, as the group ate dinner at the shelter, all three heard a sound. The colonel's two companions described the sound consistently: low, steady, coming from the east, duration approximately 90 seconds, followed by a silence that one companion described as thick enough to touch. The colonel said nothing during the sound. His companion said he set down his spoon and looked east. His expression was calm. When the sound stopped, he said, "That is interesting." Nothing else. The group went to sleep at approximately 9. The colonel was in his sleeping bag when his companions fell asleep. At approximately 5 in the morning, his companions woke. The colonel's sleeping bag was empty. His boots were outside the shelter, placed side by side on the sleeping platform edge. Laces loosened. His pack was upright against the shelter wall. His satellite communicator was on the shelter shelf. His military compass was beside the communicator, the compass open. The bezel ring rotated so that the bearing marker was set to 90 degrees east. The compass set to east. The sound had come from the east. The colonel had opened his compass and dialed in the bearing toward the source of the sound. He had marked the direction the way a military officer marks a bearing before a night movement. Dogs tracked the colonel's scent from the shelter east, perpendicular to the north-south trail, approximately 200 yards through dense spruce forest, to a creek. The creek was approximately 8 feet wide and knee-deep, running south. The scent ended at the creek. The colonel's companion told me the compass is the detail that reveals the colonel's mind. He said the colonel was a career military officer. He said military officers assess situations, identify objectives, and plan approaches. He said the colonel heard the sound. He assessed it. He identified the source as east. He set his compass bearing to east. Then he walked the bearing. He said the colonel did not stumble out of the shelter in confusion. He said the colonel executed a deliberate night movement to a specified bearing. He said the colonel planned and executed the approach the way he had planned, and executed every other operation in his career. He said the colonel followed orders. He said the sound gave the orders. He said the colonel's training did not protect him from the sound. He said the colonel's training made him more efficient at following the sound's instructions. He said training teaches a person to respond to commands. He said the sound is a command. He said trained people may be more vulnerable to the sound than untrained people, because trained people do not question commands. They execute. He said the colonel executed. The fifth and final clean case ties the entire sequence together. It happened at a location that appears in 2 other videos in this series. It happened in a national forest in the northern Rockies. It involves a search and rescue coordinator who disappeared while investigating the disappearance of another person who had followed the same sequence. I will call her Sandra Merritt. Her name has been changed at her family's request. Sandra was 54 years old in October of 2022. She had been a SAR coordinator for 16 years. She had managed more than 400 search operations. She was the person who other coordinators called when their operations stalled. In September of 2022, a trail worker disappeared from a section of trail in Sandra's district. The trail worker's equipment was found in the standard arrangement: pack upright, radio on rock, boots side by side, laces loose. Dogs tracked his scent perpendicular to the trail, approximately 100 yards, to a creek. Scent termination at the creek. Sandra managed the search for 13 days. The trail worker was not found. On October 3rd, 2 weeks after the trail worker's disappearance, Sandra returned to the creek where his scent had ended. She went alone. She told her deputy she wanted to look at the site one more time. She took her radio, but not her pack or GPS. She expected to be gone 30 minutes. She radioed at 2:20. She said she was at the creek. She said the site was as they had left it. She said there was nothing new visible. Then she said something that her deputy wrote down. She said the creek sounds different today. She said it has a tone to it. She said it is under the water sound. Low, steady. The deputy asked her to repeat. She said the creek is making a sound that is not water. She said it is coming from the creek, but it is not the creek. She said it stopped. She did not radio again. The deputy dispatched 2 rangers to the creek at 3 o'clock. They arrived at 3:30. Sandra's radio was on the creek bank. Her jacket was folded beside it. Her boots were beside the jacket, side by side. Laces loosened. Dogs tracked her scent from the boots to the creek. The same creek where the trail workers' scent had ended 2 weeks earlier. Sandra's scent ended at the same coordinates. 2 people, same creek, same coordinates, 2 weeks apart. The trail worker heard something and walked to the creek. Sandra heard something at the creek, the same something. The creek produced the sound that the forest produces. The water was the source. Sandra did not walk to the water from a distance. Sandra was already at the water. The sound came from the water itself. The water called her from 3 feet away. The water opened the door while Sandra was standing beside it. Sound. She described it on the radio. A tone under the water sound. Low and steady. Boots, side by side. Laces loosened. Equipment. Radio and jacket on the bank. Direction. She was already at the creek. The direction was into the creek. Water. The same creek. The same coordinates. Scent termination. Sandra Merritt followed the complete sequence. But Sandra's case adds something that no other case in this video shows. Sandra heard the sound coming from the water. In every other case, the sound comes from the forest. The person walks through the forest to the water. In Sandra's case, the sound came from the water directly. The water was both the source and the destination. The retired detective considers Sandra's case the Rosetta Stone of his database. He said every other case shows the sound coming from the forest and the person walking to the water. Sandra's case shows the sound coming from the water itself. He said this means the water is not just the end point. The water is the origin. The sound originates at the water and travels into the forest and reaches the person on the trail, and the person follows the sound back to its source. He said the sequence is a retrieval. The water sends the sound. The sound finds the person. The person follows the sound. The person returns to the water. The water retrieves the person. He said retrieval implies intent. He said intent implies intelligence. He said he is a retired detective and he deals in evidence, not implications. He said the evidence shows 43 retrievals from 11 states over 3 decades. He said the evidence does not identify what is doing the retrieving. He said he does not speculate on that question. He said the evidence speaks, and he listens, and the evidence has never told him what is in the water. The evidence has told him that people go to the water and do not come back, and the water is always shallow, and the water is always searched, and the water never contains the person. He said something receives these people at the water. He said the receiving takes less time than it takes for a scent to dissipate from a creek bank. He said the dogs arrive within hours, and the scent is at the bank, and not in the water, and not across the water. He said the person arrives at the water and is received, and the receiving is complete before the scent can travel further. He said instantaneous is not a word he uses in detective work. He said the evidence at the creek banks suggests instantaneous. Sandra's deputy told me the creek is where his career ended. He said he entered a notation in the district search database. He said the notation reads, "Do not approach this location alone." He said nobody has questioned the notation. He said Sandra went to the creek to understand what happened to the trail worker. He said Sandra understood. He said the understanding was the last thing Sandra experienced as a search and rescue coordinator. He said the creek answered Sandra's question. He said the answer was not information. He said the answer was a destination. He said he has not been to that creek since October of 2022. He said the creek is still in his district. He said the creek is still on his maps. He said the creek is approximately 45 minutes from his office by truck and by trail. He said 45 minutes is close enough to hear the sound if the sound travels that far. He said he does not know how far the sound travels. He said he works from a desk now. He said the desk is in a building with walls and a door that does not lead to a creek. He said he keeps the building's windows closed. 30 cases, 5 steps, 1 sequence. The sound tells the person where to go. The boots say the person has arrived. The equipment says the person is not coming back. The direction takes the person perpendicular to the trail. The water ends the trail. This sequence appears across the Appalachian Trail, Mount Shasta, Glacier National Park, the North Cascades, the Boundary Waters, the Bob Marshall Wilderness, the Cascade Range, the Bitterroot, the Green Mountains, the White Mountains, the Great Smoky Mountains, the 100-Mile Wilderness, the Siskiyou, the Olympic, the Sierra Nevada, the Selway Bitterroot, 16 wilderness areas, 11 states, 3 decades, 30 cases in this video, 43 in the detective's database, an unknown number in the files that have not been digitized, cross-referenced, or examined. The detective told me something at the end of our last conversation that I have not been able to forget. He said he went back through his database and looked at the time of day for every disappearance. He said 27 of the 43 cases have a documented time of disappearance, either from satellite data, witness accounts, or radio logs. He said 22 of the 27 occurred between 10 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. He said the peak hour is 11. He said 11 in the morning is when most of his database disappeared. He said 11 in the morning is midday. The sun is high. The shadows are short. Visibility is at its maximum. The forest is at its brightest. The trails are at their busiest. 11 in the morning is the safest hour to be on a trail. He said the sound does not come at night. The sound does not come at dawn. The sound does not come when the forest is dark and the person is already afraid. The sound comes at 11 in the morning when the person is comfortable and confident and alone for a moment, between other hikers passing by. He said the sound comes when the person's guard is down. He said the sound comes when the person is in the middle of an ordinary day, doing an ordinary thing on an ordinary trail, and the last thing they expect is for the forest to speak to them. He said the forest waits for the ordinary moment. He said the extraordinary happens in the middle of the ordinary. He said the boots are removed on a Tuesday at 11:15 in the morning. He said the equipment is arranged on a sunny day with good visibility. He said the person walks perpendicular to the trail in conditions that should make walking away from the trail the last thing anyone would do. He said the sequence is optimized for normal conditions. He said whatever operates, the sequence has learned that normal conditions produce the least resistance. He said a person who is cold and wet and frightened clings to the trail. He said a person who is warm and rested and happy on a beautiful morning does not cling. He said the sound arrives when the person is not clinging. He said the sound arrives when the person is ready to receive it. He said ready does not mean willing. He said ready means open. He said a person who is comfortable on a familiar trail with good weather and strong legs is open to experience. They are open to the forest. They are open to the sounds of the forest. They are listening. He said listening is all the sound needs. The sequence does not care about the person's age. It does not care about their experience. It does not care about their training. It does not care if they are a college student or a retired colonel or a search and rescue coordinator. The sequence operates on all of them. The sequence cares about one thing, that the person is alone in the wilderness near water. Every victim was alone at the moment of the sound. Every victim was within walking distance of water. Every victim had boots to remove and equipment to arrange and a direction to walk that would take them perpendicular to the trail and downhill to water. The wilderness provides the conditions. The sound provides the instruction. The person provides the compliance. The retired detective has been studying this sequence for 7 years. He has presented his findings to 4 law enforcement agencies, 2 National Park Service regional offices, and 1 congressional staffer. None of them have initiated an investigation. None of them have cross-referenced their databases. None of them have flagged the coordinates where scent trails end at shallow water. He said the system is not designed to see the pattern. He said each case is investigated individually. Each file is independent. Each database is separate. The ranger in Montana doesn't see the case in Virginia. The investigator in California does not see the case in Maine. The SAR coordinator in Washington does not see the case in North Carolina. He said the pattern is visible only to someone who looks at all the cases at once. He said he looked at all the cases at once. He said the pattern is there. He said the pattern is obvious. He said the pattern has been operating for at least 3 decades and probably much longer. He said the oldest case in his database is from 1979. He said the most recent is from 2023. He said the sequence has not changed in 44 years. He said the sound is the same. The boots are the same. The equipment arrangement is the same. The perpendicular direction is the same. The water termination is the same. He said whatever produces the sequence has not needed to change its method in 44 years. He said it works. He said it has always worked. He said there is no evidence that anyone has ever resisted the sequence once it begins. He said the sound is the beginning. He said if you hear the sound, the sequence has already started. He said the only defense is to not be alone in the wilderness near water. He said that describes every trail in America. He paused after he said that. He looked at the map on his wall, the map with 43 pins, the pins in pairs at creek crossings and stream beds and lake shores and glacier meltwater channels across 11 states. He said the pins are not the end of the map. He said the pins are the cases he knows about. He said the cases he does not know about are in filing cabinets and databases and unsearched archives in every county in every state that contains wilderness. He said the map is not complete. He said the map will never be complete. He said the wilderness is larger than the filing system. He said more people have followed the sequence than any database will ever record. He said the boots are in evidence rooms. He said the packs are in evidence rooms. He said the radios and GPS units and satellite communicators are in evidence rooms. He said the equipment is accounted for. He said the people are not. He said the creeks are still running. He said the sounds are still sounding. He said the sequence is still operating. He said it operated last week. He said it will operate next week. He said the wilderness does not take breaks. He said the door does not close. He said the water is always there. The sound is always there. The sequence is always ready. He said the only variable is the person. He said the person walks onto the trail every morning. The person carries their boots, their pack, their radio, their communicator. The person hikes north or south or east or west. The person walks along the line. And somewhere beside the line, in the forest, at a distance that a barefoot person can walk in 5 minutes, there is water, a creek, a stream, a trickle over rock. And the water is waiting. And the sound, if it comes, will tell the person exactly where the water is. And the person will remove their boots, and the person will arrange their equipment, and the person will walk perpendicular to the trail, and the person will reach the water, and the water will receive them, and the search team will arrive the next morning and find the boots on the trail, side by side, laces loosened, and the pack against a tree, and the radio on a rock, and the scent trail ending at a creek that is ankle-deep and empty, and the file will be opened, and the case number will be assigned, and the search will begin, and the search will find nothing, and the file will say case remains open, and the boots will go to the evidence room, and the creek will keep running, and the sound will come again, for someone else. The retired detective told me one more thing before we ended our last conversation. He said he has been contacted by 14 families since he began his research. 14 families who found him through word of mouth, through other investigators, through the slow, informal network of people who have lost someone in the wilderness and cannot accept the official explanation. He said every family tells him the same thing. They tell him about the boots. They tell him the boots were placed side by side. They tell him the laces were loosened. They tell him the search dogs went to a creek. They tell him the creek was shallow. They tell him their person was not in the creek. He said every family asks him the same question. They ask him what happened. He said he tells them the truth. He tells them he does not know what happened. He tells them he knows what the evidence shows. He tells them the evidence shows a sequence. He tells them the sequence is the same in every case. He tells them their person followed the same steps that 42 other people followed in 11 states over 3 decades. He said the families find this comforting and terrifying in equal measure. Comforting because their person was not alone in the experience. Terrifying because their person was not alone in the experience. He said one mother told him that knowing her son followed the same sequence as dozens of others made her feel like her son was part of something. He said the mother said she would rather her son be part of something than be lost. He said being lost means the person made a mistake. He said being part of something means the person was chosen. He said he does not use the word chosen in his professional work. He said the evidence does not demonstrate choice by an external agent. The evidence demonstrates a consistent behavioral sequence triggered by an auditory stimulus. He said that is the scientific description. He said the families do not want the scientific description. He said the families want to know if their person is somewhere. Not just gone. Somewhere. He said he cannot answer that question. He said the evidence ends at the water. He said after the water, there is no evidence. He said the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, but it is also not evidence of presence. He said after the water, the detective's tools are exhausted. The scent ends. The tracks end. The GPS ends. The satellite data ends. Everything measurable ends. He said what remains is the creek. Running, shallow, empty, ordinary. He said he visited one of the creeks in his database. A creek in the Cascade Range of Oregon, where a hydrologist named Karen Nygaard disappeared in 2022. The creek with the monitoring station. The creek where the water temperature rose 4 degrees for 8 minutes. He said he drove to the trailhead. He hiked to the monitoring station. He stood beside the creek. He looked at the water running over rocks. He listened. He said the creek sounded like a creek. He said the water sounded like water. He said there was no tone, no hum, no low, steady sound beneath the water sound. He said the creek was an ordinary creek on an ordinary afternoon in an ordinary forest. He said he stood there for approximately 20 minutes. He said he felt nothing unusual. He said the forest was quiet, but not dense. Birds were calling. Wind was in the trees. The creek was running. He said he left. He hiked back to the trailhead. He drove home. He was fine. He said he does not know why the creek was ordinary for him and not ordinary for Karen Nygaard. He said the creek selected Karen and did not select him. He said the selection criteria remain unknown. He said he will not visit another creek. He said his database is in a fireproof safe in his office. He said the database contains 43 names, 43 sets of coordinates, 43 descriptions of boots placed side by side on trails across America. He said the database is the most complete record of the sequence that exists anywhere. He said no law enforcement agency has a copy. He said no federal database contains the information. He said the pattern exists in his safe and in the evidence rooms of 23 counties and nowhere else. He said the pattern will continue to exist whether or not anyone documents it. He said the sound does not require an audience. He said the water does not require a researcher. He said the sequence operates independently of human observation. He said the only thing his database changes is awareness. He said a person who knows about the sequence can recognize the first step. He said recognizing the first step is the only possible intervention. He said if you are alone on a trail and you hear a low, steady tone from the forest, and the tone is directional, and the tone stops, and the forest becomes very quiet, do not follow the tone. He said, do not look in the direction of the tone. He said, do not remove your boots. He said, stay on the trail. He said, keep your boots on. He said, keep walking in the direction you were walking before the tone began. He said, the sequence requires compliance. He said, a person who does not comply with the first step does not proceed to the second. He said, the sound is the trigger, and the boots are the action. And if the action does not happen, the sequence does not complete. He said, keep your boots on. He said he does not know if this works. He said nobody in his database kept their boots on. He said every person in his database complied with every step. He said he has no control group. He said there may be thousands of people who heard the sound and did not comply, and continued hiking and reached the trailhead and drove home, and never mentioned the sound, because nothing happened. He said the people who comply are in his database. He said the people who do not comply are on the trail, alive, unaware that they were one decision away from being a row in a spreadsheet, in a fireproof safe, in a retired detective's office in Missoula, Montana. He said he hopes this video reaches the people who are planning to hike alone this year. He said he hopes they hear about the sequence before they hear the sound. He said he hopes the sound does not come for them. He said the sound is always coming for someone. 30 cases in this video, 43 in the database, an unknown number in the files that have not been opened. The boots are in evidence rooms. The creeks are still running. The sound is still sounding. The sequence is still operating. The wilderness is patient. The water is patient. The sound is patient. It has been patient for a very long time. And somewhere in America right now, a person is lacing their boots for a hike. They are checking their pack. They are filling their water bottles. They are driving to a trailhead. They are signing a trail register. They are walking north or south or east or west along a maintained trail in a national forest or a national park or a wilderness area. They are alone. They are near water. They are listening.